Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, December 17th, 2014, show number 1037. It is the week before Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas to all the Your Mac Life listeners, whether you're listening in to us live right here on Wednesday or you're tuned into the archive sometime during the week. I want to remind everybody there won't be a show next week and there won't be a show the week after that because traditionally Your Mac Life takes the Wednesday of between Christmas and New Year's off because there's not a whole lot happening. Well, this year is one of those fluke years where New Year's and Christmas Eve both fall on a Wednesday. And so Christmas Eve, you should be out with friends and family and doing Christmas stuff. And New Year's Eve, you should be just enjoying your life and reminiscing and doing whatever it is you got to do. So we're not going to be doing a Christmas or New Year's Eve show. But hopefully you guys will have a very good week. We won't be back until the new year, until January 7th. So hopefully we'll see you guys online. We'll talk to you online. And as always, you can always send email on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. I love getting emails from you guys. We were talking about this in the pre-show. How many folks still send and or receive Christmas cards? I don't get any from family anymore or friends, but I get it a lot from PR companies or companies I've dealt with over the past year here on Your Mac Life. I got this lovely card. Lovely. It's this funny little card from this company. You know, just typical Christmas card. On the bottom it says, Rudolph, this is not the best time for an inventory. So it's kind of a cute card. And I open the card up, and it says, greetings of the season and best wishes for the new year. Lauren Nank and Company. And it's signed, handwritten signatures on the bottom. You can see all the names on the bottom. That was very kind of them. Have no clue who they are. I don't recognize the name Lauren Nank and Company. I don't know who they are. But the other thing they put in the Christmas card, inside the card was a scratch ticket. Which it just cracked me up. They sent me a scratch ticket. So what I'm going to do is here live on the show, I have my toonie. I'm going to scratch this thing off. If I win $10,000, I'm leaving right now, okay? Just the show's going to be over. Scratch. $20. Here's the $10,000 one. $3. Ooh, I got two $100. Oh. Crap, you bastard. I hate when they tease you like this on these scratch tickets. I've got two 10,000s, two 100s, and 1,000. So that doesn't mean I mean I won squat. Just checking to make sure because my eyes are bad. A lot of zeros there. Nah, I didn't win nothing. Well, like I said, I keep doing the show. Later on in the show, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim and I did a Amplified this morning. We talked about the Apple Watch, and we got a few more details and things to talk about with regards to the Apple Watch that we'll get with Jim about that. We're also going to talk about Christmas presents and traditions. Got some great emails from you guys about your Christmas traditions and things like that. And we'll also talk about, in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about Lightroom. Adobe Photoshop Lightroom is the full description of the app. And you talk about how you can save some underexposed photos and why you might even want to shoot underexposed. I went to the beautiful Park and Tilford Gardens on the North Shore a couple days ago. They have this wonderful display in the garden. I took some photos of that. And so I'm going to show you guys how to use Lightroom to save some of your photos. Dr. Dream, as Shawn learns probability live on the air. Yeah. I know. Monty, it would have been funny to have watched Shawn walk out and leave the show running if he'd won. I wouldn't even leave it running. I just shut everything down and go. I mean, I just go to the first script. Now that I think about it, though, that was probably an American scratch ticket. I wonder if I was even eligible to win anything. I don't know. Well, moot point now. This story has been blowing up on Twitter today with this movie, The Interview. Have you heard about this? This Seth Rogen, James Franco movie, basically a comedy about them going to North Korea and killing the leader of North Korea. Not that he doesn't need killing, but because of the movie, there have been threats, terroristic threats to everyone involved, Sony and movie theaters and the actors themselves. And so Sony just announced recently, just a few moments ago, that they were pulling the movie from theater. They weren't going to show it in theaters. Now, they might show it when things die down a little bit. But what ticks me off about this in so many different ways, Warren Holstein writes on Twitter, what happens if Kim Jong-un decides he doesn't like the Avengers movie next? Do we go to war? Seriously, he asks. That's a good point. Scott Weinberg, it bothers me that people think this is funny. We now have terrorist-mandated censorship in the United States. That's terrifying. These people are giving in to the terrorists. You made this movie. All right? You made a movie about killing the leader of another country. You try to make a comedy out of it. And when the people of that other country got pissed off at you, you stuck your head up your ass and went, oh, we didn't know. If you're going to make the movie, stand behind the movie. Rogan and Franco, earlier this afternoon, canceled public appearances about the movie for fear of what? Some possible threats? Well, guess what? Maybe you should have made the damn movie to begin with. It's such a gutless thing to do for Rogan and Franco to back out of public speaking, for Sony to back out of showing the movie. They're gonna release it eventually, whether it's on video, on demand, or whether it's direct to DVD. This movie will get released. And by the way, it's a shitty movie. I can tell. I've never seen the movie. I've seen the trailers. The trailers tell you it's a shitty movie. Now, to be fair, I'm not a Seth Rogen or James Franco fan, so I'm already biased against the movie. But looking at the trailers, I looked at it and went, that's not going to be a good movie. That's not going to be a funny movie, at least to me. So I'm not going to go see people online going, I'm definitely going to go see it now. Well, good for you. But guess what? I think you'd be wasting your $10 going to a shitty movie. There's a lot better movies out there. Probably going to go straight to Netflix, Brian Monroe says, or BitTorrent, or yeah, MacMan. Have the balls to release it, you spineless bastards. It just galls me because now you've shown a group of people that these threats work. You know, the old thing of the terrorists have won. I don't know if these guys are terrorists in the true meaning of the word, but they're certainly threatening people at Sony and threatening people involved in the movie. Now, Sony's going to come out and say, well, we were worried about our employees and blah, blah, blah. Then he shouldn't have made the goddamn movie. Just when I read the first description of this movie, I guess about 18 months ago, I thought, that sounds kind of gauche to make a movie, a comedy of killing the leader of another country. Doesn't matter what you think of the other country. It's still kind of icky that you didn't make that movie. And to now that it comes time for the movie to get released, that you've been promoting the hell out of, you've been advertising all over the place. Now it's like, oh, we're scared. You cowards. Unbelievable cowards. Another story that kind of ticked me off was the media hyping. I picked on TUAW on Twitter today. Gene Munster now says the Apple TV will come in 2016, not 2015, or 2014, or 2013, or 2012, or 2011, or every other year he's predicted this thing. And Gene is just playing the game. And the media is letting him play the game. The media is letting him play them by treating his every utterance with regards to the Apple TV as not the joke it is. You know, for the first year, ooh, that's pretty bold. The second year, that sounds kind of old. The third year, yeah, right, Gene. By now, it's ignore him. Ignore him. And I like Gene Munster. We used to have him on the show on a regular basis. His other stuff, his notes that he sent out to clients, are full of good, interesting tidbits of information, but not these Apple TV predictions. So Gene's not even as serious about these predictions enough to put them into his notes to his clients. It's not like these were secret notes that the media found of Munster's. These are the things he's just saying. So, Mac Media, don't give him any more promotion. Don't pimp him anymore. There's just no need of it anymore. Don't forget, if you are still shopping, if you're still Christmas shopping, if you're still online shopping, we'd appreciate it if you would go to yourmaclifeshow.com first, and on the lower left-hand side, click on any one of the Amazon links that we have posted up there. If you do, we get a bit of a kickback if you buy something on Amazon during that session. If you buy the exact thing that I've picked, then we get a little bit more of a kickback. But if you buy anything else, we'd get a bit of a pimp fee. It's interesting too. I'm seeing people online talking about UPS and Amazon delivering on Sundays. They were kind of confused that the FedEx guy was wandering around on Sunday delivering things. I saw our local mailman on Sunday delivering packages. So they're obviously trying to keep up with demand. So it looks like you can probably still order things and get them delivered in time for Christmas next week. So MacMan says the USPS, United States Postal Service, was delivering packages on Sundays. Mackinnon, Dr. Dream says, Mackinnon breaking news, U.S. reverses to say North Korea behind Sony hack tomorrow. They've already said it today. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. Monty says, I can't fault them for backing out of public appearances. It would give crackpots too much of an opportunity to hurt members of the public who might attend those appearances. I don't think the threats are real. But the only way to find out, obviously, is to do an event and have something bad happen. Well, obviously a bad thing. So, I kind of get that. But you can do appearances or promotion of it the way we always see celebrities do them. You see them in the one-on-one interviews with Entertainment Weekly and that kind of stuff. I think it's cowardly. I think it's absolutely cowardly of these guys to go this route. Again, later on in the show, we're going to be talking about Lightroom and how you can save underexposed photos using Lightroom. We're also going to talk to our good friend up next, Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com, about the Apple Watch and about beard baubles and a bunch of whole other things. So please stay tuned. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, and on our phone we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm good, Shawn. How are you?
I'm good. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We won't talk to you next week because, as I've been telling the audience, so we take the Wednesday between Christmas and New Year's off. But this year, because Christmas and New Year's are on a Wednesday, we won't talk to you again on Your Mac Life until January 7th. So I hope you have a great Christmas and a very happy New Year.
Lord, I could be dead by then.
No, don't say. Come on, dude. Don't say so. You know how upset I would be if that were to happen?
You wouldn't be upset at all.
Well, hang on. It depends on how your will is written.
I doubt there'd be very many people that would be upset. Most companies that I report on wouldn't be upset.
They were a party at BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's two things I need you to explain right off the top. Dr. Dream in our IRC chat room specifically asked me to ask you about this. We were on Twitter yesterday talking about motorcycling, and you wrote, "I went down on a bike and I'll never ride again." You want to explain that? Because that didn't come out the way you thought it would.
I just, I'm trying to talk bike language.
And you failed.
I did. Yeah, well, with your perverted mind, I failed. But, yeah, I did. I went down once, and that was it.
How old were you?
Unlike most, I was probably 20. I was pretty poor at that point in my life, and unlike now where I'm just moderately poor, I was pretty poor at that point in my life, and I used the bike as a means of transportation, not because I loved riding bikes, which is different for a lot of people. Like, you love bikes.
Yep.
For me, it was a mode of transportation because I couldn't afford a car and I couldn't afford the insurance for a car.
Yeah.
So, but when I went sliding through that intersection, on my ass with the bike sliding beside me and cars all around,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was it.
Yep.
That was it. And I traded the bike for, obviously being poor. It wasn't a very nice bike. It was a Yamaha, I don't know, like 500 or 600 or whatever those things are.
Yep.
And I traded it for $200 and a leather jacket.
That's not a bad deal.
I just wanted to get rid of it because I knew that I would drive it again.
Yeah. Well,
because I didn't have a choice.
I was going to say, yeah,
and then
you had to.
Yeah, and soon after that, I bought a similarly cheap car. But I felt better about that car than anything else. So.
No kidding. Now, the other thing is, I'm even more disappointed by this story. I saw this and immediately tweeted at you like 1,000 other people did. Beard baubles. Why want to see a picture of you wearing beard baubles? I think this would be the greatest Christmas picture ever.
Are those super decorations?
Yeah. I think it'd be the coolest thing ever.
You know what I have for decorations for my beard?
What?
Food, peas, popcorn. Stuff that and I don't put it there; it falls there and stays there for weeks.
But that's not that's not good.
And then falls out. That is the only decoration.
No, I disagree. I think you look great in beard bubbles, dude. I think you look fantastic.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
What?
Tomorrow, just for you,
I
will post a picture with an ornament in my beard.
Please, would you? That would make my Christmas.
I will.
See, because that's exactly something I would do if I had a magnificent mane of chin hair like yours. This time of year, oh yeah, every time I left the house, I'd have beard bubbles in it.
You know, like you see I'm going to go out like a flasher, except I'm going to put stuff in my beard and just walk around and let people look at it. They'll stare at me like they stare at girls flashing.
Oh, hell, no kidding, man. Oh, I think it's just hilarious. You posted
I'll
up.
do that.
You posted up on the Loop thoughts on iPad sales. Why does it seem
Yeah.
like everyone is getting their knickers in a bunch over something that doesn't seem to need it? I mean, Apple is selling millions and millions of these. I can confidently predict that Apple will sell more iPads this Christmas season, this quarter, than they ever have before. Why is everyone worried about iPad sales?
Honestly,
Yes.
I can give you the honest answer. I can give you a politically correct type of answer.
Come on, give me the honest answer.
Okay. The honest answer is because they really have nothing else to pick on. That's it, really.
Yep.
I mean, you know, I was about to tweet this. People are asking me why I remain so positive about Apple, and the answer is quite simple. It's because I haven't seen their focus change. It remains on the product strategy and innovation.
Yep.
That's a good thing. That's exactly where it should be. And so you have to remain positive. Are there things that Apple could improve? Absolutely. Yeah. They could improve, you know, their services and things like that. There are things that they can improve. But the strategy of Apple has remained where it should be. And so I remain positive. You know, I wasn't always positive about Apple. You know, there were some lean times when Apple, back in the mid '90s.
Sure.
It hasn't been lean for them since, really, but you know there were some tricky times back then. So if Apple shifts its focus away from what makes it fundamentally Apple, then that'll definitely raise some eyebrows. But to date, they have not.
Now, let me throw a little anecdotal data at you, although that's no such thing as anecdotal data. Hang on. In the last month and a half since I've had my motorcycle, I have been riding about every second day for 3, 4, 5 hours in the afternoons. But halfway through, I'll stop off at a local Starbucks. At the Starbucks, we see the usual mix of people sitting around having coffee and a lot of people using laptops. And the vast majority of those people using laptops are using Macs, are using various versions of MacBooks, Pros and Airs and that kind of stuff. The rest of the people you'll see, maybe one out of every 10 persons are using some version of the PC. Except for me, I've never seen anyone using any other tablet in these coffee shops. I'm not saying not just iPads. I haven't seen anyone using a tablet of any kind. Lots of iPhone users who are, you know, looking at Facebook and doing whatever they're doing on their iPhones. Lots of laptop users, but no iPad users, no tablet users.
That's odd. I see iPads all the time.
Do you? Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it depends on the location. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not making excuses, but trying to figure out why. You know, if it's a place around a work area, maybe people just grab their laptops and go out to Starbucks. I don't know, but you know, for me, I see quite a few iPads well, I try and go to Pete's when I can, so maybe the people that go to Pete's are smarter. I don't know.
Exactly. I think it's an interesting point that you make. It's why are they going to the Starbucks? Are they going there just for the coffee, in which case they're going to go and just sit and look at their iPads, or are they going to work? Are they students? And you see a lot of students with books and papers and that kind of stuff spread out, or business people who are typing away, working on a spreadsheet or things like that. So maybe that's the reason why is folks aren't using the Starbucks for casual reading like you would expect folks who use the iPad to be. 'Cause that's what I do it for. I'll bring my iPad with me on the bike, and when I get there, I'll take it off, and I'll go and read. I'll just read a bunch of Pocket stuff or read a bunch of website stuff. So maybe that's the difference in the mix. I'll have to start trying different coffee shops. It's an interesting point of view, too. Maybe it's the Starbucks clientele. Maybe it'll be different if I go to the usual mom and pop type coffee shops as opposed to, but to be fair, I've done this all over Vancouver, everything from all the way out in Langley to the North Shore to West Vancouver to all economic areas of Vancouver. So it's not. I don't think it's an economic issue so much as it's maybe possibly a work issue.
That's very interesting because of course I see lots of computers at coffee shops too, but I see a good deal of iPads as well. I'd be interested to hear what you find.
The article I think is really interesting from the point of view of that Apple sells a lot of these things. There's no real need to worry. Yes, sales are down from previous points, but part of it is because we really haven't figured out the iPad life cycle, the iPad buying cycle yet. Maybe it's a 4-year cycle. Maybe it's a 5-year cycle. It's certainly a seasonal cycle. And we'll see more of those. Like I said, I guarantee you Apple's going to sell more of those iPads of all various stripes this quarter than they have ever before. Is part of it the nature of reporting, certainly of Wall Street, that everything is quarter to quarter? Everything is just what's happening in this 3-month period of time. That the focus is much too narrow for these folks. I think you think it's part of the explanation?
Unfortunately, I think part of the explanation is Apple's own fault, and not in a bad way, really, but the explosion of the iPod and the iPhone and the way that those, just skyrocketed in sales and continue to. Mm-hmm. I think that analysts look at that and say, well, the iPad should do the same thing, and it didn't. I mean, let's be fair. They're selling, 10, 15, 20 million of them a quarter.
Exactly.
It's not like they're selling like the BlackBerry playbook, 100,000 of them or something. They're selling a great number of them. But when you look at year over year for the 4 quarters of fiscal quarters of 2014, you see the first quarter. The first fiscal quarter for Apple is October, November, December. That's a fiscal quarter. So the fiscal quarter for first fiscal quarter was October, December, November, December of 2013. That's the holiday quarter. They sold 4 million more iPads than what they did the year before. Yeah. Now, if you look at quarter 2, 3, and 4 for fiscal 2014, you'll notice that they're down in every one of those quarters to the tune of probably, I'm doing quick math here in my head, but to the tune of maybe 4 to 5 million over the year previous. So, it's kind of a wash for the year. Yeah. And certainly that's not what Wall Street wants to see. I doubt it's something that Tim and the executive team want to see too. But when you look at the cycle, it's different than what it is for the other gadgets, and that's just it. The iPad, we see the stories on Apple's own site. The iPad in education, the iPad for seniors, or even older people that may not buy a computer, but would certainly buy an iPad, and kids identify with the ability to touch, but they don't identify with a computer, not right off. Yeah. So, there's different things. Now, that kid who has an iPad never would have bought a computer because kids don't buy computers. Mm-hmm. Their parents buy computers. And if there's a computer in the house, chances are they're going to leave that until the kid gets old enough where they want to use it all the time. And the parents finally get frustrated enough that they can't use their own computer, that they buy a new one. Exactly. So that's kind of how I see this life cycle of iPads, that people are buying them like they buy a computer. An iPad will last several generations of iPad releases.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas phones are kind of a commodity device, where you buy them, you throw them away. Not literally, but you're willing to if you can get your hands on one of the new ones.
Yep.
And a phone is something that you have with you 24 hours a day these days. So, an iPad is something that is sitting at the office or in your bag or at home waiting to be used at your leisure. A phone is always there.
Yeah.
It's always on. It's beckoning you to use me. There's a text that just came in or an email just came in. Mm-hmm. And the iPad is different than that. It's not the same type of thing. There's not as much excitement that goes on around an iPad release as there is around an iPhone release. iPhone release also ushers in a new OS,
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of differences here that it seems to me that analysts aren't really looking at when they look at, well, we're not seeing the growth that we thought we would. Well, that's partly because you're stupid. And, if they're not willing to sit back and look at actual facts, then, I don't know. And if you look at the comments in the story, there were many comments there where people said, that's exactly it for me.
Yep.
I own an iPad that's a couple generations old, and I don't see a need to upgrade it.
Yeah,
and they shouldn't upgrade unless they see a need. And, great for Apple that they make their operating system backwards compatible as far back as they can without, completely trashing the iPad and making it unusable because it's so slow. And developers aren't often given, enough kudos for their apps working on the devices as well. But when developers and Apple both make their products work on older devices, that's even less of an incentive for people to go out and upgrade.
Yeah.
Well, this still works great. All the newest apps still work on it. I don't really need to upgrade because I use it at night for an hour or so.
Yep.
Or, I go to the park and use it, or, whatever it is.
This falls into quite nicely the folks Jim and I did Amplify this morning. We talked. Thanks very much to he's actually in the chat room. Brian Oblinger. Brian asked a really interesting question about the Apple Watch. This sort of follows along with that. I wanted to follow up with Jim. One of the things that you said that always interests me with regards to the Apple Watch is that you have said many times you haven't worn a watch regularly since 2006 or 2007, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I wear one every single day when I leave the house. I don't wear one around the house. I take it off as soon as I get here. But the last thing I do before I leave the house is put on my big, heavy Tissot watch that I love dearly. It's the thing I've had the longest in my life. It's interesting, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Jim. When Apple announced the iPhone, it was kind of an easy sell for them in the point of view that a lot of people, most people certainly here in North America, had a cell phone, and they used it on a regular basis. So buying an iPhone was kind of just the next version of the cell phone they already had. Not many people had true smartphones, and, well, I got to buy a new phone anyway, so I'll buy this iPhone thing. But all of us have had watches at some point in our lives. We got them when we were 12 years old. I mean, I remember my first Timex watch I got for Christmas. I was, I think, 12 years old when I got my first watch. Or you got one for graduation when you were 16 or whatever it might have been. So we've all had watches, and we've all had access to watches our entire lives. It's going to be really interesting, and again, this falls on what you and I were talking about this morning, how Apple convinces people who have always had watches to buy their watch. How is Apple going to convince me to give up my Tag Heuer watch, my Tissot watch, which I literally love? How are they going to convince me to give that watch up in favor for an Apple Watch? And conversely, how are they going to convince people like you who don't wear watches to buy a watch? Because we don't need watches anymore. I was thinking about this morning. I'm looking around at me right now, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 7 clocks right now that I can use to find out what time it is. I don't need a watch to tell me time anymore. How do you think Apple's going to pull that off?
What's really fascinating? I remember before the iPhone was announced but not released,
Yep.
and you and I were doing a Your Mac Life, so this must have been 2007.
Yep.
I was in L.A., and I was standing outside the Roosevelt Hotel, and we were doing this episode of Your Mac Life.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying at that time that I'm not convinced that I will actually use an iPhone because I love my BlackBerry.
Yep, that's right.
And the thing that Apple is going to have to convince me of is that this new iPhone thingamajig that they have is better than the BlackBerry that I already use. And clearly they did that, and they did that with millions of people. You know, that's what I needed back then, and it's what I still need. You know, Apple is going to have to convince everyone
Yep.
that you need to have this watch. You need to have this $350 watch. And, you know, it's not about telling time. It's about lifestyle. And it's about fitting into our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, can we do that? Can we fit this new watch thing into our lifestyle?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Apple has to tell us.
Yeah. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. I'm really, we said this on Amplify this morning, really interested to see how Apple markets this thing. We've heard all kinds of various rumors about them hiring fashion experts for their stores, and where will they sell it? Will they sell it in the Tissot stores that you see in the mall? Will they sell it in the high-end stores along with the Apple stores? Will there be personalized shopping or personal shoppers to help you pick out the exact right Apple Watch for you? How long will they last? There's all kinds of questions to be asked about the Apple Watch. I think it's going to be at least a moderate success. They're going to sell 100,000 of them in the first quarter. They'll sell 1 million of them in the first year. I think that's probably a given, an easy number for them to hit. But what's going to happen, I think you said this on Amplify this morning, what's going to happen in 3 years' time? Where's the Apple Watch going to be there? I think it's going to be really interesting.
Well, yeah, and that's what we don't know. But we also don't know where the technology of the watch is going to be in 3 years.
Yep.
I mean, Apple has a history of releasing a product at its very base of functionality.
Yeah.
Until they can nail it down. That's not just hardware; that's software as well. Look at the first version of iPhoto, for instance. You know, it was basically a digital shoebox,
Yeah.
just like Steve said. You know, that's what it was. And now look at the stuff that you can do on it. You know, it's pretty incredible, really, when you think about it. They did that with the iPod. The iPhone was no different,
Yep.
and I don't think that this will be any different either.
Speaking of completely different, did you see the story that according to the New York Times, cards supported by Apple Pay now reflect 90% of card transaction volume in the United States in only 2 months? Google Wallet, what?
Yeah.
90% of those
transactions. And Samsung's things. They're just trying to piss me off naming it Loot Play.
That's right. Lawsuit, sue them, man, sue them. It's America. It's America.
I mean, come on.
It's America. You can find a lawyer they'll take that to court for you.
That'd be funny, you know.
It really would be hilarious. I think it'd be worth the PR just to do it.
Can you imagine?
Now, I've asked you this for the last month. Have you yet to use Apple Pay? Come on. Seriously?
What?
You haven't used Apple Pay, have you?
I did. I use it all the time.
When I've asked you like last week, is you never used it.
That's not true.
You have said you've never used it.
That's not true.
You're just jerking me around now.
No, I use it all the time.
So is it as easy as advertised?
Probably easier.
Is it too easy?
too easy. I don't know how it could
Well,
be too
I
easy.
asked that because up here in Canada, and I don't know if you used it when you were back home in Nova Scotia, but I've just gotten a new credit card, and it has this tap and go thing on it, which is kind of cool until you think about it. And what it is I go to the supermarket, I buy my groceries, they ring it up, and I say Visa credit card. She does her little thing, and then on the card reader, I don't stick the card in, I don't slide the card. I literally tap the card on the screen, and it says
Right.
approved, and I walk away. That's not good. It didn't ask me for a PIN number. She didn't ask me for any ID. That if I had lost that card, if someone had stolen that card, anybody could have done what I just did. I think they've made it too simple up here in Canada.
Yeah, but nobody in Canada steals stuff. So, you know, I mean,
So
what? Somebody stole your credit card? Must have been one of those Americans.
so it is an easy thing to do. The Apple Pay system down in the States.
It's so easy. So easy to do. I mean, I walk into Pete's, and that's I just walk up there. They ring up my order.
Yep.
I hold my phone out when it pops up with the card. Now my phone isn't even is locked.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I don't turn it on and go into Passbook. It's locked.
Yeah.
And the screen is black, and I just hold it out, and it comes up, and with my card, I hold my thumbprint down, and instantly it says done. The girl comes back with my coffee, and I leave. Now it's funny. I went to a Pete's the other day, and I turned around to leave, and she said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, that'd be $2." I said, "Oh, I already paid." So, you know, back off.
So is it? What happens when you want to use a different card? So say you go into Pete's and you want to use your Visa card versus your MasterCard. Is there on the screen? I've never seen anyone talk about this. Does it pop up to give you a card option, Diners Club
Yeah.
or American Express or whatever it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever cards you have in there, it pops up. You pick a default card, so it'll always pop up with that card.
Okay.
And if for some reason you think, oh no, this is, I don't know, this is, a business expense, for instance. I'm going to use my business card. Then they're all there, you know, as if, like you were holding a deck of cards, you know, they're lined up on your iPhone, and you just tap the one that you want, and then it comes to the forefront, and you put your thumb on, and away you go.
Brian Oblinger in the IRC chat room says, in most places I've used Apple Pay thus far, they're still requiring a signature. And that's probably just because the cashiers aren't sure about all this kind of stuff, or it's a company policy kind of thing. Have you noticed that you're having to use your signature at all with Apple Pay?
I'm sorry?
Have you had to sign for things? Because supposedly one of the advantages of Apple Pay is that you don't have to sign for the transaction. Have you had to use your signature to sign for things?
Yes. That certainly has happened.
Yeah. So it's not completely transparent yet.
Well, in a lot of cases, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, there seems to be no way to actually know when they're going to do it.
Really?
You know, sometimes I go buy something for, you know, $30 or $40, and they just say, okay, done, walk out. I go to buy a Blue Bottle coffee. I have to sign for a $2 bottle, $2 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Sometimes at Home Depot, I have to enter my PIN number. So, it's different. It's different for everything. Very, very odd. And, if you, Mac Observer wrote an article about this, a little while ago, and I thought it was a fascinating article. And John Martorello said that what he found, he actually called his credit card companies, and what he found was that it depends on the credit card company.
Yeah.
It depends on, they may come back and say, we need a signature, or they may come back and say, we need extra proof, or, whatever. So it's not the vendor as much as it is the credit card company. So, and I find that, I'm sure that that's what they said, but I use basically the same card and I buy the $40 things. But then, I go buy a cup of coffee and I have to enter more information, or I have to sign, or, this other stuff. So,
Interesting. It's going to be 90% is just a remarkable number that Apple has captured of this market, and there's no reason to believe it's not going to stay at that number and get higher as more. Because remember, this is only for the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus right now. This is a relatively small market already. Apple sold a few million of them. There are probably tens of millions of Google Wallet capable Android phones out there, and yet Apple's iPhone 6 and 6 Plus have already captured 90% of this market.
Yeah, and it's a huge market. I mean, I said it at the time. This was a bigger announcement than the Apple Watch, I thought at the time. Huge. Apple's going to make just a buttload of money off of this.
And I think as more people realize what's going on here, they're going to end up upgrading their phones in order to take advantage of this technology. Folks who have a 4, a 4S, maybe even a 5 might go, you know what? I'm into my phone for 2 years now. It's time for me to switch. Maybe I wouldn't do it normally, but hey, this Apple phone thing is kind of cool, along with the new camera and the bigger screen and all the other kind of stuff. This is just one more data point that people will use to justify buying one.
People that don't have Apple Pay don't realize just how good it is.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. That would they upgrade just to use Apple Pay? No. But they would if they saw it in action, and they knew that they could go to the stores that they like to go to, and just hold it out. I mean, I go to, as I said before, I'm trying to eat a bit better these days.
Yeah.
So there are a number of items that I like to buy at Whole Foods, and I try not to buy too much at Whole Foods because we get back to that moderately poor thing.
Yeah.
Whole Foods is very expensive,
mm-hmm.
But there are a number of I love fruit, vegetables, so a number of things that I like to buy there. So, and going through the lineup, they're ringing stuff up. I put my card up before the guy's even done. I put my phone up and pay.
Yeah.
By the time he's done and they bag, I just walk away.
Exactly.
I just grab the bag and walk away.
That's right.
And he's perfectly fine with it because I've already, before he's done, I've already gone in and authorized the payment for whatever he types up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's so easy. Now, if I can walk around and do that everywhere, now Whole Foods is one, I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
I hold out the phone, I okay it, gone.
Brian Oblinger says, I agree with Jim as well that Apple Pay is a bigger story right now than the Apple Watch. Well, yeah, that's if only because the Apple Pay is available right now and the Apple Watch isn't. The Apple Watch is still, for lack of a better way to describe it, still theoretical. We haven't yet to see it in store.
When you see Apple Pay in action, and when you start to use it, and you start getting used to using it. You go to, I mean, let's just, as an example, let's say that I go to uh, Whole Foods and I grab some grapes and I just walk through the line, Apple Pay, done, out the door.
Yeah.
I go to Pete's Coffee. She's pouring my coffee, paid, done, out the door. And then I go pick up some clips to run guitar cables at Home Depot, and boom. And, you know, I have to type in my number in that one, but then done, gone. And, you know, it's kind of like that commercial that's on now for that guy that's supposed to be out shopping, and he's so quick that he's home and he ruins his birthday surprise.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you seen that? That's
yep.
a great commercial.
Yep, that's right.
So it really is like that. You just walk through and bam, you're done and out the door. I love it.
Very cool. Folks, that's it from him. He's Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. If you'd like to, you can check us both out on Amplified, the award-winning podcast available on the iTunes Store. Do a search for Amplified. You can find it there, or go to loopinsight.com, and you'll find it one of the stories there, or 5by5.tv/Amplified. You can listen to Jim and I talk about more of this kind of stuff on this morning's Amplified. Jim, again, won't talk to you on Your Mac Life until the New Year, so hope you have a great Christmas in sunny, warm California and a happy New Year.
You too.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
Hey.
I just saw this. If you're still looking, I don't know if this stuff is available for sale, delivery in time for Christmas. I saw this on my list of Christmas gifts. Check these out. If you have somebody who, I love whiskey, and whiskey is especially good in a particular kind of whiskey glass. You can't just pour it in a regular Kool-Aid glass. To me, you've got to have a nice, heavy, solid base for your whiskey glass. And these are really kind of cool from a website called Uncommon Goods. They're called City Map glasses. And they have maps of the city of Atlanta, of Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Boston, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, New Orleans. And I think they've got Vancouver and Toronto in this list. They've got Washington, D.C., and Boston. So if you know of someone who's from one of these towns or lives in one of these towns, it might be kind of a cool gift. They're $12.50 a glass. Like I said, I think there were some from a couple of Canadian. Last time I looked, I thought there was a couple of Canadian ones there. But it's kind of a neat, different gift. I'm always looking for different, interesting gifts for people, because after a certain age, a lot of us get very, very hard to shop for. And so it's hard to find things that are interesting and unique. So if you are looking for someone, Mosquito says they're good-looking glasses. My only issue with Mosquito is, like I said, for whiskey, I want a good, solid, heavy glass. I don't know if these would be heavy enough, thick enough, solid enough for me to want to use them as whiskey glasses. I got a bit of a sad news here. My good friend Vito Mori up there in Prince George, he lost his mom this past week on Monday. Elisa Mori passed away. She'd been unwell for a while, but Vito told me she passed peacefully and with family around. So it's a tough time of year. It's never a good time of year to lose a parent, obviously, but it's a tough time of year to lose your mom too. So Vito, buddy, I'm thinking about you and you and your family and your lovely wife and your kids, and hopefully you and your dad will get through this together. So I just want to say a shout out to Vito Mori. Have you guys ever heard the story? I remember when I was a kid, talking about Christmas traditions. When I was a kid, we would sit around Christmas Eve, and I'm talking like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And on TV, you would have the Christmas specials. There'd be the Grinch and Charlie Brown and Frosty and Rudolph, all the usual Christmas specials things. At every break, starting at around, I want to say noon on Christmas Eve, almost every commercial break would have a Santa update. And they would tell you where Santa was. where he was getting ready to leave. He didn't actually leave the North Pole until sundown in Nova Scotia. And because, this is so funny, because as we are told in Canada, Santa is Canadian because he lives in the North Pole, which is in Canada. Don't correct me, shut up. He was going to get here first. And he was going to get to Newfoundland and Nova Scotia first. So we had to get to bed really early because if we didn't, we held up Santa Claus. Because, he's got to come here first, and if we're not in bed yet, then Santa Claus can't leave. So the news, the news reporters would break in every now and then with Santa Claus updates. I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. And then sometime we started to get the NORAD Santa alerts. These were much more official than just our local news guy saying, and Santa Claus is here. They started showing us the NORAD, North American, North American Radar Air Defense, I think it is. And they've got stations all along the Arctic Circle in Canada. And so we would get the NORAD updates, which were really cool because these were official government updates. Well, do you know the story behind that? Do you know why NORAD did that? Well, it turns out that December 24th, 1955, the red telephone at the Continental Air Defense Command Operations Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado, started ringing. We all know from watching movies, the red phone ringing is a bad thing. It's not a good thing. So can you imagine how freaked out these guys were? The red phone is suddenly ringing. U.S. Air Force Colonel Harry Shoup, Director of Operations at the center, rushed over to the phone to grab it. Yes, sir, this is Colonel Shoup, he barked. Nothing but silence in response. Sir, this is Colonel Shoup. Silence again. Sir, can you hear me all right? Finally, a soft voice on the other end. Are you really Santa Claus? A little girl said. Well, it turned out that Sears had posted a phone number, a Sears Roebuck ad, inviting kids to contact Santa. Hey, kiddies, the ad read, call me on my private phone. I'll talk to you personally any time of day or night. And the ad listed Santa's direct line, but it was off by one number. And bizarrely enough, that one number went to the air defense system in Colorado Springs, Colorado, as opposed to anywhere else. It went there. Well, after a few more phone calls, Shoup pulled a few airmen aside and gave them a special assignment. They would answer the phone and give callers, barring the Pentagon, Santa's current location as they tracked him on radar. So from that night on, tracking Santa became a yearly tradition carried on by the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, when it replaced CONAD in 1958. A new phone number, separate from the red phone, was established and publicized, and people were invited to call in and find out how close Santa was to their home. Every Christmas, military service members staff phones and email accounts and the Santa Tracker Twitter account to keep kids up to date on Santa's whereabouts. I always love that story. I love the story of this got-to-be very official colonel in charge of the nuclear arsenal who's basically saying to his men, don't just hang up on the kids, answer the kids' phone calls. So that's why, to this day, you can go to the website NORAD Track Santa. And now with the technology we have today, your kids can go on their iPads or their iPhones or their laptops, their iMacs, and actually track Santa in the sky. That NORAD has set up this special tracking website that gives the current location and his next location, things like that. So it's really cool. I really love that story. Speaking of Christmas stories, we got this very cute Christmas tree from our good friends, the Gare family. Kind of hard to see on the video, but apparently the Gare family has a theme to their Christmas tree. I don't know if they do this every year, but the theme for the Gares this year seems to be, and I'm willing to bet that the Logan had something to do with this. Oh, by the way, MacMan, it's NORAD Santa. MacMan says NORADSanta.org is the website if you would like to check it out. Susan Gare writes, sends me this picture. Obviously, it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Christmas tree. And on the top of the Christmas tree, they've got, I think that's Shredder. I'm not up on my Mutant Ninja Turtle mythology, so I'm thinking that's Shredder on the top of the Christmas tree. He said, Susan writes, "Hey, Shawn, you lost your front teeth playing hockey?" Yeah, like most Canadian boys. Poor Logan has chipped 3 teeth this year, 2 in the last 7 days. First, he got hit with a basketball. Then he collided into a classmate. And on Sunday, he took an epic faceplant while he and I were running a 2-mile race. We're so tired of seeing his dentist, even though he's a great dentist. Sigh, but we were still well enough to put up our Christmas tree on Sunday. And our Bumbles wreath. Oops, never mind. We're going pop culture this year with our decorations. Here's a picture of Logan ice skating. He says he wishes he could go skating with his Uncle Shawn. Logan, so do I, buddy. I remember us all going ice skating at one time, me and your dad ice skating at one time during Macworld Expo. So yeah, I miss hanging out with you guys too. Good friend Myron Freeman says, hello, every year you talk about some of your family traditions during the holidays, and I thought I would share a couple of mine from childhood up to modern day. As a child, every year starting the week of Thanksgiving, my grandmother would take out her punch bowl that normally had random non-edible items in it and would load it up with fresh fruit. My mom did that too. She'd also put up bowls of mixed nuts. She would do all of this until New Year's when it all got put away for the next holiday season. So when you mentioned on YML that your mom did this too when you were a child, I laughed until I had tears running because I began to think it was some sort of weird ritual that black families do for the holidays. Now, Myron, I don't know if it's a black, that's a good point. I don't know where the tradition comes from. I don't know if it's a black family tradition or whether obviously it's not I always thought it was a Nova Scotia tradition. So obviously it's not that if your mom did it too. So maybe it's a black family tradition. Does anyone else do that? Does anyone else's mom put out, my mom put out bowls of, not fruit per se, but always mandarin oranges. There's always bowls of mandarin oranges around the house and little smaller bowls of Planters mixed nuts. And it was so funny because I don't like nuts except for cashews. And my mom was the same way. She didn't like any of the nuts except for cashews. I don't like walnuts. I don't like Brazil nuts. I'm not crazy about peanuts. I hate macadamia nuts. The only nut I like is cashews. So if you put out a bowl, and you can't buy a bag full, box full, bowl full of cashews, they're too frickin' expensive. So if you put out a bowl of mixed nuts, and the only nuts you like are the cashews, you will spend, as I did, an inordinate amount of time with your finger in the nut bowl, just digging around looking for the cashew. Luckily, cashews are very distinctive shapes and colors. So I dig around, cashew. Dig around. Now, remember, this is my finger. I just put a cashew in my mouth, so I probably licked my finger with the salt of the cashew. Dig around. Cashew. And I'd sit there, and when that bowl was empty of cashews, I'd move on to the next bowl. Drove my mother nuts, because she would then sit down next to a bowl of mixed nuts, and with her finger, dig around. Couldn't find any cashews. Next thing you hear is, Shawn! Stop eating all the cashews! So I didn't realize that other families outside of Nova Scotia, or outside of my family, did this. The other thing that we did, and I saw that there was, hang on, y'all stay right there. More Christian tradition, hang on. Another one of those Christian traditions for me is chocolate. And in particular, 2 kinds of chocolate in particular. I don't know if Americans know this stuff. Just trying to see if I can. There we go. Do you guys know about Quality Street chocolates? Find their website. It's and I ask if you guys Americans know this because it's a British chocolate selection. And they've got very particular kinds of chocolate. So they all come wrapped up in their own little individual cellophane wrappers. And so there's toffee and toffee fingers and toffee deluxe and caramel swirls and vanilla fudge. And my favorite was always the green triangle. It has a hazelnut in it. And I'm not even a hazelnut fan, but love the green triangles. So this is from QualityStreetChocolates.com. So there's always a big bowl of the Quality Streets somewhere. And there's always a big bowl of these things. Moritz Icy Squares. Do you guys have... I never saw them in the States, although I wasn't really looking. These were Canadian, or at least Nova Scotia traditional chocolate called Icy Squares. And they're so good. They're very, very creamy chocolate. They're soft, and they literally, you put one in your mouth and just let it sit there for 10 minutes as it slowly melts in your mouth. I loved Icy Squares when I was a kid. So I very happily grabbed myself a bunch of those the other day. Myron says that things are a little different these days. We still have lots of food, even fruit, although it's not in a punch bowl anymore. Visit with lots of friends and family for good times. He says, as a gift idea for some of the budding photographers out there, every year I comb through my photo library and have calendars made with some of my better photos, which I give to family and friends as gifts. Very clever idea, very personal idea, Myron. What I thought would be a small one-time thing turned into a decent-sized operation where I'm giving out almost 80 calendars a year because people enjoy seeing the photos so much. So I can attest to it being a great gift idea, although you probably don't want to be giving out 80 calendars a year. Happy holidays, Myron, a.k.a. Fletch. Myron, thanks very much for that. I appreciate that little email. And yeah, I think calendars are a great idea. I've said before in the show, we don't print off enough of our photos, of our good photos. Not every photo needs to be printed. Not every thing that you post to Instagram needs to be printed. But even if you're doing it just for yourselves, then as like a Christmas gift, as your own personal calendar. And I've got a calendar. Our friend Hiker in the IRC chat room told me about that calendar on the wall. It's from a local Telus, and it's for, I think, the Humane Society. So I've always had a calendar on my wall somewhere. And so making your own calendar, even one that you can give to family and friends of the photos you took in the past year, and you know, with iPhoto and with Apple calendars and other websites where you can create your own calendars, you can put the pictures, you know, if it's someone's birthday, you can put a picture of them on their birthday in the calendar. Or you can just have one big picture in the main section of the calendar. I think calendars are a lovely gift idea. I mean, it's not the only gift you give somebody. It might be something, you know, you give to a maiden aunt or things like that. But it's a neat idea. Now, interesting, I just saw that, who was it that, Monty says, I'm pale as a sheet. My grandparents used a punch bowl for fruit, and glass bowls were only used at Christmas, full of mixed nuts. Interesting, Monty. See, I thought that we were the only folks that did that. So it's great to know that other folks do the mixed nut thing at Christmas too. And that's the only time we ever had bowls full of fruit outside. There was always fruit when we could afford it, when it was in season in Nova Scotia. There's always fruit in the fridge, but only at Christmas time were mandarin oranges. And I've actually, it's funny how much of this stuff is just instinctive. I bought Icy Squares, my Christmas chocolate treat, and I bought mandarin oranges that I'll have over Christmas. You know, one of those big bags of mandarin oranges. I don't eat mandarin oranges any time of the year, except for Christmas time. I eat oranges all through the year. I love oranges. I'll eat them all through the year, but I only eat mandarins like this Christmas. This 2 weeks before, the week before and the week after Christmas. Funny how automatic that stuff becomes. Baron von Cruiser says, I spent my childhood in the Philippines. I always recognized who was in the Santa suit because it was always the local white guy. Mosquito says, my extended family would get together for the holidays and actually prep food we somehow couldn't have any other time of the year. So there was noodle kugel and potato pancakes, the latter of which I consumed in enormous quantities because I was allowed to have them with sugar and cinnamon as dinner. Macman says, I remember seeing a black Santa once and being slightly confused until someone, probably my mom, said that was one of Santa's real helpers. Hiker BC, my Jewish neighbors invited me over for dinner. Latkes with applesauce or sour cream. I do not discriminate when they were so delicious. Hiker BC, Vancouver has the best pickled herring. Went so well with it. And gefilte fish is a crime against nature. Yeah, sorry, my Jewish friends. Gefilte fish is disgusting. It's utterly disgusting. Scott Thrift says, hey, Shawn, had a comment on your hatred of fruitcake. Oh, my God. You're obviously traumatized by bad fruitcake. When my nan made Christmas cake, she would soak the fruit in rum for a couple of months in 2 large jars she had for the purpose. These would be turned weekly, then finally put into the cake mix. These cakes would be cooked, wrapped, and put away for the next year to mature. Sounds weird, I know, but they were amazing. As to the question, what is Christmas pudding? A Christmas pudding is sort of like a fruitcake, but it's usually boiled and served with flaming brandy. That doesn't sound good. Most boiled food is not good. Anyhow, I also wanted to wish you and your listeners a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. Have a great one, and make sure you share the joy. Scott in Sydney, Australia. Thanks very much, Scott, for that email. I appreciate it. Mosquito. Fleming Brandy was the name I used to dance under. All right, moving on. Moving on. Let's move on to our Starting Point Photography segment. As always, you can go to startingpointphotography.com to see the kind of stuff I post up there. I also got a Flipboard page for Starting Point Photography and a meetup group, but you guys are not in the Vancouver area, so you can't join the meetup group. But if you have any photography-related questions, please pass them along, especially you beginners. I'll try to help you out as much as I can. We went out with a group this past Sunday to Canada Place. If you've seen a picture of the Vancouver waterfront, it's the very large, it looks like a pier jutting out into the harbor, and it's got what looks like sails on it. That's called Canada Place. And Canada Place is a convention center. It is a docking point for cruise ships here in Vancouver. When cruise ships are going to Alaska or going around, they dock there. And so this year they had their Christmas display, and they had it outside. And so I brought a group of my fellow meetup.com folks to go down and shoot the Christmas displays. Oh my God, they were lame. They were just so lame. They were awful. But one of the things I was telling folks about was the idea of, so what happens is in this meetup group is a bunch of beginners, and they come down with their cameras, and they've got iPhones, they have point and shoots, a few of them have DSLRs, and they just want to learn how to shoot better. So I help them out however I can with tips and tricks. And one of the things was that a lot of them are having trouble getting well-lit images. If they decrease their aperture low enough to get the shot, their shutter speed was too slow. And the reverse was true. They basically couldn't get enough light handheld to shoot at night. Obviously, it's very hard. So one of the things I was asking them was, what software do you guys use? And very few beginners will do much software-wise. So I wanted to show you folks about what I do with Lightroom, which is my photo editor of choice, Adobe's Lightroom. So here's a shot. I was down at the Park and Tilford Gardens on the North Shore this past week. And so here's a picture. And as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, maybe you can't, but it's a 1/60th of a second exposure at f1.8 and ISO 100. So makes perfect sense. There's not going to be a whole lot of light here. There's just not going to be, it's too dark to get a whole lot of light. But look at this. This is the exact same photo after a couple of tweaks in Lightroom. See how that pops up? See the detail that comes out? I mean, there's stuff in the background there that you can't even see in the underexposed shot. A lot of the lights you can see them pop up, but the bridge, the stairs, the building in the background all come into relief with a couple of tweaks in Lightroom. Another example, and this was a shot I did intentionally. I intentionally focused on the red light down here in the lower right of the shot and knew that the background was going to be all blurry. So you can see it's the same thing, 1/60th of a second, but this one's at f8. I wanted more in focus, and I increased the ISO by 400. Didn't make a whole lot of difference. But tweaking it in Lightroom, this is what happens. In Lightroom, now I get the shot I was actually looking for. So I intentionally underexpose the shot. It's easier to underexpose and recover detail than it is to overexpose and recover detail. So think of it this way: it's easier to go up the scale from dark to light than it is to go down the scale from light to dark. So if you have a choice, let your photo be a little bit darker and try to recover it in your image editing software. Now, one of the things that you can do, it's really easy. Lightroom is a stupidly easy program to learn the basics of, because it's all just basically, yeah, and Monty said, no, sorry, mosquito, nice, you can avoid grain, Shawn. Yeah, by keeping the ISO low, I avoid the grain when I bump up the exposure on this stuff. So here's how easy Lightroom is to use. You have these controls over here on the right-hand side, and all you do is just start moving this stuff around. You see here temperature and tint and exposure and contrast, highlight. You don't even got to know what this stuff does. Doesn't matter. Just start moving them around. So here's one thing called auto. So I click on auto, and look what it did. Simple as that. One button click. I'll go back. There's the original. Clicking on the auto exposure button, just basically telling the camera, hey, figure this out. Or, sorry, telling the software, hey, figure this out. Boom. It did a pretty doggone good job. It's not done yet, but it's done a pretty good job of capturing the detail in the shot. So then I would go through here. So you can see by clicking auto, it increased the exposure. So another thing I'll do is I'll start playing around with the highlights button. And again, you don't have to know what highlights does. Just slide this around to see what happens until you get the effect that you're looking for. Same as shadows. Increase the shadows. I can decrease the whites. I can decrease the blacks. Increase the clarity. That's a little too much. I'll go back a little bit on the clarity. I can increase the vibrancy, and I can increase the saturation. That's too much. Let me bring it back. It's really easy to use. Really, really simple to use. There's a bunch of little tips and tricks that you can use and learn when it comes to using Lightroom, but for the most part, it's a fairly simple program to do the basics with. As MacMan says, yeah, use RAW. RAW is a must if you want to post-process. Mosquito says Lightroom was pretty interesting to play with while the trial lasted. MacMan, aperture in Lightroom's auto enhance is usually a good start for tweaking images. Most folks don't have cameras that can shoot in RAW, but if you've got a Canon Rebel, I think it's the TSI, I think it's called, the various versions of the Rebel. If you've got most consumer level DSLRs, look to see if you can shoot in RAW. The downside is that RAW files need post-processing. JPEG files, you can't often do much with it when it comes to post-processing, and the file sizes are much smaller. So if all you want to do is take a picture and then take that picture and put it on Facebook, or take that picture and tweet it, then shoot in JPEG. But your photos will become much, much better if you learn at least a couple of photo editing tips and tricks. If you learn to underexpose, and then use software to tweak the exposure up a little bit. You'll be able to shoot in lower light conditions, tweak them in your software, and then be able to post a much better picture. I mean, if I tried to post this picture, if this picture was a JPEG, and I tried to post it, it would just be a crappy photo. There's nothing interesting about this photo at all. But by shooting raw, by underexposing it a little bit, and by doing a very minor tweak in Lightroom, this is not anything special in Lightroom. By tweaking it a little bit in Lightroom, I was able to get a shot that I really like. This is one of my favorite Christmas shots now because of that. So that's the starting point photography tip of the week. If you have, I don't know if Lightroom still has a free trial, but if those of you who are involved with Lightrooms or have the subscription to Adobe Suite, I think Lightroom is, I don't know if it's extra $10 or it comes with it or whatever it might be. You can use it. The other thing is you can use an older version of Lightroom too. So if your local computer store, if they happen to still sell box copies of things, you might be able to buy an old version of Lightroom 4. There's a standalone copy of it. This is not a trick of Lightroom 5, although that's what I was using. Lightroom, any version of Lightroom 3, 4, 5 does this. I'm pretty sure iPhoto can do this too. Most image editing apps can do that exposure trick and help you tweak your photos. So keep that in mind when you're shooting. You might want to shoot, if you can't get enough light in the photo, let it be a little bit underexposed and then tweak it in software to make it a little bit better. Sly says, oh, good, I bought Lightroom for one of my nieces for Christmas. She asked for it. Oh, good, Sly, that's fantastic. Let me know if she needs any help or has any questions about it. Again, it's an easy program to just poke around. It'll be better if she learns about it and what you can do. Sly, if she has a birthday coming up or something along those lines, the Adobe Classroom in a Book series is very, very good. Send me an email, Sly, and I'll send you my Lightroom links for Lightroom tips and tricks and that kind of stuff, where I learned a lot of this stuff. But just from the basics, what I just showed you right there, tweaking things in Lightroom with no knowledge of what Lightroom does is real easy. She's going to want to learn how to do a lot of other things, but the absolute basics are really, really easy to do in Lightroom. Macman says, with huge memory cards, I shoot in RAW plus JPEG. I found the JPEGs are often good enough, and having the RAWs are like having negatives from back in the film day. Not all cameras will do that, folks, but if your camera can do it, my D600 has 2 slots in it, so it has 2 card slots. And I've got my camera set up to shoot RAW. It'll take an image, it'll shoot it RAW, and then it'll turn it into a JPEG. And we'll put the RAWs on one card and the JPEGs on the other. Or you can set it up so that it shoots it sequentially. It'll fill up one card before it goes to the next card. So look in your manual to find out if your camera can shoot RAW and JPEG. JPEGs take up a lot more space, but again, as MacMan says, memory cards now, a 32 gig memory card is under $40. Dirt cheap. So grab a couple of those. Grab 2 or 3 of those. I've got 2 in my camera, and I've got probably 3 or 4 more in my camera bag, just in case things fill up. So you can't have too many of those little cards lying around. Oh, have to go. Dallas and Vancouver in 5 minutes. I'm not allowed to watch the game, but Sly's going to leave in 5 minutes, so I have to make sure I'm out of here in time for that. Any more email? Let me just check real quick. I got a long email from our friend Jim Balomo. Jim, I'll read that, and I'll comment on it on our next show. And I got an email from my sister, Melanie. Happy birthday, Melanie. And happy birthday, Darren, her husband, my brother-in-law. And happy birthday to my sweet little niece, Emily. Happy birthday. Sorry, what am I saying? Merry Christmas to all you guys. That's it. Again, don't forget, we won't be doing a show next Wednesday, which is to be Christmas Eve. Won't be doing a show the Wednesday after that, which will be New Year's Eve. So I won't be back on the air with YML until January 7th. So I hope all you guys have a wonderful, happy, safe, fun Christmas and New Year's. And if you're still looking for presents for Uncle Shawn, go to yourmaclifeshow.com and click on the PayPal subscription link. Subscribe to Your Mac Life. You can subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15, Or just donate money. I had to spend $100 yesterday on 2 keys for my motorcycle. Keys. Just keys. Just to turn the frickin' thing on. Because the other keys I had were made out of apparently saltwater taffy, and a Uri Geller to hell out of them and just bent them. The keys are expensive because they got a little computer chip inside them. So the keys themselves are $40 a piece just for the blanks. And I gotta go get a locksmith to. So there was $100 I didn't have. I had to spend to. It's a wrong time of the year to have unexpected expenses. That is for sure, folks. As always, thank you guys very much for joining us. Thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us here. And as always, I want to say thanks to you guys for being tuned in live. I want to say a big, very special Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to my good friend Sly. Sly, I hope you and your family have a great Christmas and a fantastic New Year. Until January 7th, until the New Year, folks, I hope you all, again, have a wonderful Christmas, a wonderful Hanukkah, a wonderful Festivus, a wonderful whatever it might be that you are going to be celebrating. So until next year, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!